Hello there, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are. It's me, Addison, your favourite friendly furbog who hangs around the internet, back with another episode of the pod of many things. And today it's a bit different because there are three of us on the pod today because I have my favourite co-host who I've been shilling every episode since he came on, the Flickering Torch. Ben, how you doing?
Hello, everyone. I'm really good. You know, I kind of work like Beetlejuice. Addison has now said my name enough time to summon me onto his podcast, so here I am to haunt you all. You can catch me at twitch.tv/theflickeringtorch at 7:30 British Standard Time, summertime standard time, to see more of Addison and me play games, or you can watch the VODs on youtube.com/theflickeringtorch.
Fucking hell, that shill! Like, mate, Mitchell.
Fuck, you invite me on. Shit.
And we have today a guest that we're going to interview today about his amazing products, but we're both very curious about it. We've got Mitchell here from Penny for a Tale. Mitchell, how you doing?
Good, yeah, and I think it's objectively amazing. Like, subjectively, people might have variations on that, but I feel like objectively, we could just say amazing. But yeah, I'm Penny for a Tale on all the social medias. You can find my Twitch channels at Weave the Tale as well as Penny for a Tale, and you can find us at pennyforatale.com. But yeah, today's all about necrobiotic.
I am very excited to talk about this, and me and Ben are both a bit gassed now because we've been looking at art, we've been looking through the stuff. But first, let's get to meet the man. Let's meet the wizard in Oz before we start diving in. So let's talk to you about you, Mitchell. Tell us your background in tabletop RPGs. Has it always been indies? Have you played the Dragon game? Tell me about yourself.
Oh, the Dragon game. So it actually started with Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition.
Wow!
Yeah,
already like the fires of hell. Like,
yeah, I feel like initiative's about to be called. Like, and yeah, it was strangely. I was invited by like a local church group. Like my friends who had like a church group. They're like, "Come on by," which I was like, "This is very weird." Like, I thought this is America. I thought you were guys supposed to burn it and stuff. But okay, that's fine. And yeah, it really wasn't. It was a fun experience. I was playing an NPC that ended up just tripping over a table like throughout the whole combat. Me and that table just had a whole fight scene. It was stupid to watch, but for some reason it got me. And that was in Maryland, kind of around I think 2013, the bygone era. But after that, when I went back to North Carolina, I was like, this is really cool. But then I just kind of forgot about it until I watched a movie called The Wild Hunt, which is a horror LARP movie, which is the truest horror LARP movie you've ever seen. I know they had Knights of Badassdom, but that's like casual. It's not even that scary. The Wild Hunt is just creepy. Oh man! And so when I watched it, I was like, yes.
If you can't see this because we're audio only, but Ben is now googling this. Like Ben's little eyes.
I think I've seen Knights of Badassdom because there's one LARP horror movie where the guy like constantly wants to use real swords or something, and then he like just has a real sword at the end or something.
Yeah, I think that's Knights of Badassdom. Yeah,
has that got like Peter Dinklage in or something?
Yeah, that's it.
I've seen that one. I might have to watch the Wild LARP movies. Always excellent.
Oh yeah, like if you ever watched the series LARPs is really hilarious, and I enjoyed that. But like Wild Hunt is, I think, the truest horror LARP movie I've ever seen, and I love horror movies. So when I watched it, I was like, yes, I need this. The LARP aspect, not the horror, though I was also enjoying the horror aspect. And so yeah, I started LARPing for did like Mind's Eye Society, Vampire Changeling, Boffer LARP and stuff like that. And it really wasn't until like I did some Dungeons and Dragons and I toyed around with Pathfinder, where I played like I did not know Pathfinder then. It was a really, really stupid character. I was like hitting people with my scarf. And
can anyone ever truly always know Pathfinder though? Really?
I don't think so. Pathfinder, you need the books, you need a computer, and then you need like an old sage somewhere around to be like, and how does that work? again.
It's so true.
Yeah,
It's
They get out there like scrying ruins. They like grab
Yeah.
on it.
Exactly, because they'll be like, you look at a monster sheet and it's like, this acts like this. Okay, what does that mean? You should look at this because it kind of works like this in this other book. And then you go to that other book and they're like, well, this acts like this in this other book. And you're just like, okay. And by the end of it, you're stealing like the Constitution from just like National Treasure. And you're like, somewhere in the back here, I think is the rules for this.
Do you think that the people at Paizo did literally just throw dragon bones and wherever they landed is where they put that rule in a book?
Yeah, I think so. They just, I think there's some like wizardry going on with Paizo, which is like the true secret to their success, and the whole process is just a part of it. So yeah, so going back to like the Pathfinder stuff, it wasn't until PAX Unplugged the first year at Open that I really got into indie TTRPGs. And that was about 4 or 5 years, I think 4 years ago, over in Philly. And the first game I picked up, I think, was Of Dreams and Magic, as well as the Genesis Rebirth. And then after that, it was just, it's downhill or uphill, depending on like who you ask, because a lot of money has been spent on TTRPG books. A lot of ramen days.
Ben's our friendship group's resident indie RPG hipster.
What do you mean? There's no ridiculous money being spent over
Forbidden Lands there. I see Forbidden Lands there. I saw that earlier.
Oh, that's my baby. That right there. Oh, gets the whole show to itself.
For Forbidden Lands, ICRPG, like if you can get Ben on those, which I'm sure you will probably at some point, he will go. So we'll leave some time at the end for you to nerd out and maybe swap indie TTRPG stories. However, you're developing your own indie TTRPG. Fucking segues, Ben. Watch this. But you're developing your own indie TTRPG called Necrobiotic. For people who haven't been following you on Twitter and stuff, what's the elevator pitch for Necrobiotic? How can you best describe it? And then I know Ben's got some questions about it that he wants to ask, like systematically. I want to talk about like the tone and stuff. But first, Necrobiotic, you've got a minute or so before the guy who you're selling it to is going to get off the elevator and never see you again.
Oh, I mean, well, first off, I already have him handcuffed to the thing, so they didn't realize this. But also, there's a construct on the outside who's going to be helping me. Little do they know. This will also be at the conventions. But Necrobiotic is a kind of a post-apocalyptic dystopia nightmare TTRPG set behind the walls of Florence in a time where humanity went down with a whimper more so than any sort of explosion or epic blast. It was just more deaths, less births. There was no explainable cause whatsoever. So humanity had to turn to science and advanced medicine in order to program and bring back to life the dead in order to act as a workforce to support what remains of humanity. And that is Necrobiotic. That was under a minute.
That's fucking good. Like, what do you think, Ben?
God, please let me off the elevator. He's handcuffed me.
Yeah, the construct has the key, so you'll have to get it.
So, me and Ben were talking about the tone. Now, I don't know if this is kind of my interpretation of the card system that you're using. But even though it's set in like Florence and there's like almost like this medieval feel to it, there's also kind of like, I don't know, like I feel a bit like it's a bit, there's like this almost like this sci-fi Western bent to it, like because you're using cards and because there's like almost like this lawless like bit to it, like when you look at like Out of Action and like going beyond the walls of Florence sounds like dangerous and frontiery and like you don't know what's out there sort of thing. So like Florence is like seems to be like this hub of civilization, and then go forth, my friends, and it's almost like hey, like rapier cowboys, like no guns, but like we'll draw swords and duel like in that sort of way. Do you agree with that like sentiment? Or
I definitely think there's aspects of it. One of the things we wanted to ensure and stuff that we're kind of getting from the source material is there's just like the real world, there's like different genres you can emphasize in everything depending on kind of the location and the campaign you want to run. So obviously, like outside the walls, like it's horrific. You not only do you have the remainder of humanity who pretty much has gone the kind of expected length of what someone would expect humanity to go to at like the end of the earth. So cannibals, weird cults, and stuff like that. But there's also like there's a grain. We already know that there are a couple of cities who survive the whole process, and that's kind of will be fleshed out in later books for people to explore and stuff like that. But it's like between brigands and cannibals who one fun fact for everyone who wants to play a Technophont, the power armored military of Florence. Is the cannibals haven't really figured out a way to get them out of their armor, so it's almost like eating a turtle from like the top down. If they're interested in that, so yeah, it's very like, and Technophons have seen some horrific things. Not to mention the occasional rogue construct needing parts, and parts being humanity, which the Citadel of Science will of course deny. It's okay out there. Don't worry about it.
It's all good.
Yeah, and then you kind of have the inner city, which has a little bit more law and where science is respected more than like wealth. People trying to get by day to day despite kind of this settling melancholy that's like, will humanity persist? Is it all worth it? Why is my dead grandma like power washing the streets? And just kind of all sorts of creepy things that have arisen from the pursuit of science for the sake of humanity's continuation.
It's interesting that you say that it's got kind of like multiple genres in, because just before you got on, me and Addison were kind of discussing what we thought the kind of genre it was going for. And Addison obviously sort of honed in on this kind of Western aspect, but for me, it was almost like a body horror, authoritarian kind of like Renaissance story more than a Western. So it's interesting that you kind of have like the outer city, which is almost one genre in itself, and the inner city that's another. Which one of those do you think the game focuses the most on in this sort of initial release? Like, are you more looking for like the frontiersmen go out and explore, or are you more looking for kind of like the inner city kind of politicking and dealing with this kind of horror authoritarian aspect?
Yeah, so the core rulebook in terms of setting deals with more so the inner wall and kind of the farms just outside of the wall and kind of their struggles. We kind of, and throughout it, as well as some secrets throughout the book, because I've always been a fan of secrets or Easter eggs in a book. So I feel like Invisible Sun did this really well with kind of like their secret stuff that brought people to different places on the internet that did some lore stuff if you kind of put in a little bit of work to find it. And that's kind of our hope too, is to show some secrets and tease you on like what's on the outside, so that you as the GM can explore and kind of create the world as you go. But yeah, most of the setting does focus on the inner walls and kind of the day-to-day going-ons of Florence and how they're kind of coping with the future.
I wanted to ask you about Florence, and maybe about do a few more little story beats before we get into like the mechanics of like the cards and stuff and how you came to those decisions. But like, what I know that Florence was like seen as like the technological capital for a while in terms of like the Renaissance and stuff like that. Is that genuinely why you chose like Florence as your city of choice, because of the fact that you're going for this like, oh, the Renaissance happened and then like shit went down, like, and then we had to fix things. Is that why you chose Florence? Or
so the source material all comes from a set of Italian books titled El Giornale. done by Valerio Amadei. So Valerio, as well as Andrea Mamugi, are the kind of they are like the main creators of everything. And I kind of just I facilitate and bring it to the rest of the world, as well as help develop it and further along the IP. So kind of everything is based on the worlds from the books, which is set in Florence. Florence being kind of the not only kind of the Renaissance and stuff like that, but the historical ties, the beautiful villas and such. It has a very, especially as we kind of deliver more art, it kind of almost suggests a time before, despite like it's still being based on modern Florence, just because of like the grand cathedrals and the beauty of the cityscape and stuff like that. So, yeah.
It's kind of got the.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go
on.
first, no, you go first. Right?
It's kind of got the kind of. I believe the term is like techno retro or retro futurism kind of thing, that almost kind of similar to 40K, and that you're bringing those kind of Renaissance Gothic things with like super high tech stuff.
Which is very difficult to do in like America because the buildings aren't as old and don't have that kind of look about it.
That's what I was actually gonna ask, Ben. Like, did you choose that like almost like timeless aesthetic of Florence because of the fact that in many other cities you don't have that like these villas and these grand like sculptures and cathedrals and stuff like that, whereas in Florence and like in a lot of Italy you have that, like you can go around Rome and you see all the plazas and the what they call columns and stuff like that, whereas you couldn't do that in America, in New York.
It just couldn't happen. It would be a typical post-apocalyptic, and I think what I want for people to when playing is like you almost see the passage of time for humanity as you're looking at the old buildings, the old pieces of art, and then you look at a construct, which is kind of like the pinnacle of what humanity has achieved in the time that's passed on before. And especially for people living in Florence, because like medicine has advanced to such a degree that almost everything can be cured or replaced. A 100-year-old person looks more like a 50-year-old person, just because he can kind of replace failing organs. You lose something like an eye or something, an infection starts. They can cut away that aspect and just replace it with a body piece, or even grow another piece for you, though it's more expensive.
One of the things that I was going to ask about is like is actually, I feel as though with Necrobiotic, I keep having to check myself and not call it Necropunk.
No, me too. I was like Necro.
Something. Although I am sad you didn't call it something like necrology, like technology and necro.
Man, that would have been good.
But one of the things that I quite like about the Florence that you've created, especially in a city, is it's very easy in post-apocalyptic worlds to just go completely desolate. Everybody's out to destroy each other. See Metro, see Fallout, see other games as well. Whereas I feel as if in Florence, like life in some perverted way still goes on. Like that, like there is a society and there is like there is a city that functions, even though the function of it, the cogs are a bit weird and don't go together. Whereas it's not like, oh yeah, scavenging for everything, like looking for bottle caps. Like, no, you can have a house and you can live here and what made you decide to make that kind of choice rather than just going the stereotypical like, yeah, you're surviving the tunnels of the metro?
I think people have done that before in so much times, and so like here in Florence, like there's a technocracy, there's a government, there's 50,000 people living in Florence during the kind of the setting of the book, which is still a lot of people, though, like drastically less than the population of Florence during our time. And there's trains, there's a society, there's parties as people kind of start to figure out what life is going to be like. There's military, there's law enforcement. It's a society that is kind of is moving forward despite the things that has happened around it. And I think having the lack of resource necessity in the setting is kind of makes it stand out, because you're not worried about what am I going to eat. You're worried about like why do I persist, and what's it going to take to keep humanity going on? What's the answer, and why is this all happening to us? And really, kind of, what does life mean if people can come back in like a program fashion? And it kind of more like a question of why than how to live.
Yeah, reading it was kind of scarier that the mundane stuff goes on at the end of the world, and like, no matter what, you've still got to like get up, clean your house. The streets are going to get cleaned. Like, even though humanity's dying, I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, and what I really like to do for one shots is kind of because Florence has so much space, it's used to a greater amount of people. And Florence, the Citadel Science, ever the optimist, continues to have constructs clean and prepare every apartment and house for humanity, despite like there being empty streets where just no one lives. Mansions go like unlived in, large condos or apartments, cathedrals unattended. And then you go to a cafe and you kind of pull the carafe out of the chest cavity of a construct whose whole job is to keep warm and brew this coffee, and kind of pour it out for you if needed. And just like this regular cafe area where you meet with your with friends that morning before you're going off on a shift.
That's so metal. That's so cool.
It is. And like the fact that like, because everybody would know, like, what that's a person. That was a person. And it now just makes me coffee. And even with like in the art, you see them like they've kind of like covered. It looks like they've almost covered their faces, or like put on a new head, so that like, almost take that away. The
early days of the construct program, they did not alter anything on the exterior, and they found that was too damaging to the human psyche. It elicited too much terror. People were creeped out, and so what they began to do was they removed kind of all of the meaty bits of a human person, and then tan and leather the skin so that it kind of has pull taunt on the skeletal features, which is why they kind of look like tanned and brown mannequins with little steampunk parts coming out of the back.
The fact that, like Ben said, the fact that that's scary, that they had to test that they had to figure that out. like maybe dead people walking around is not a good idea for everybody else.
That test community must have been like horrific, like staring out the windows like, is my sister like power washing the street? Didn't we just bury her? It's like, oh god,
that's grim. But yeah, no, it is metal. I do agree. So let's talk about this, because we've talked a bit about like Florence and like the characters. Like, I like there's two illustrations that I really like that you've sent us. One of them is like the guy he's like in the military uniform. He's got like a rapier and he's like ready to strike. That looks. But actually, my favorite one, I don't know if he's a construct or if he has any cybernetics, but he almost looks like Dorian Gray. There's like it's just like a guy in like a shadowy
long kind of white gray hair and such.
Like it, and like I think that the art in this is so good. So before we move on to like the more crunchy, like the system, so Ben can like do his thing and kick ass and like ask the hard hitting questions. the art in this is phenomenal. It's one of the reasons why I've been so like I've seen it and I've loved it since day one. Since I saw that first picture, both the animated and the still version of like the cover image.
Oh yeah,
There's
yeah.
an animated version.
There is.
There
an animated
is.
version.
Yeah, our artist has she's an animator and has 2 little shorts on YouTube, which are fantastic and beautiful. And yeah, I was like, wait, hold on, can you just animate this for me? Like, can we? And she's like, yeah, totally. And I was like, oh my god, and it was just gorgeous. I wish I could figure out a way to. We'll just put TV screens on the front of every book and just have them animated.
Stretch goal, you know? Just you get a Kindle on the front of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so how about you tell us about these artists and like how you came up with? I know that you've obviously said you've got the aesthetic from like this book, but how did you like liaise with them? Who are they? Like, why did you pick them, sort of thing?
Yeah. So actually, the book and everything had more of a pencil drawn look, done by a guy named Stefano Simone. In Italy, and I really like it and enjoy it, but I really wanted to kind of capture something with color and shadow, and I love kind of that art style. So with every kind of TTRPG project that I start on, art is kind of one of the first things I look at, because I am very inspired by looking at things. And when I came across Haley Lee's, or I think Honey Oink is her name on Twitter, when I saw her work, it was so filled with melancholy, and it almost had like a more sophisticated Tim Burton vibe, in my opinion.
I can see that.
Yeah, and so I was like, yes. And I talked to her, and she's in China right now. And we had a conversation, and she was on board. And after that, like, what I really appreciate is the fact that I don't have to do much art direction, and she'll come back with a way better idea than I ever had for a piece, and just go with it. Her ability to just kind of know the setting and understand what it's going through and what we're trying to do was amazing. So it's just really cool to have her on board. And every time, like, she has there's 2 more art pieces coming before the Kickstarter. One is the Technosophist, which shows off them looking through the junk pile and finding like an old doll, kind of almost reminiscent of the Gears of War, like their first trailer with Marcus kind of going through the streets and seeing like this little doll of like a bygone era.
Where he jumps into the building and it's like dark. Is that the one you're talking about? Yeah, I got you guys.
Yeah. And then the other one kind of shows off the kind of piecemeal of what humanity is. So someone who's kind of replacing parts throughout their body in order to continue living. So have like the little scar marks for replaced arms or fingers, parts of the flesh on the exterior, as well as the horrors of the construct. So yeah, she's done amazing.
Yeah, the art is super cool, and also kind of not what you would expect a book about, kind of like a medieval, almost like corpse-ridden, like future. Like this is probably not the correct art term for it, but it's almost got that kind of like the Disney animation style. Kind of look to it.
Yeah, whereas it's very, it looks kind of like the sketchboards for like a Tangled movie or something like that.
Yeah, if you really wanted to horrify some children, you'd show them that movie. Yeah, so to me that was really interesting that you went kind of that art direction wise. That my favorite piece, I have to say, is the constructs, because I read in the sort of setting information that we were sent over. The idea of these sort of like mannequin-esque corpses in the field. And we were discussing kind of before we started recording, which was a little bit of a faux pas on my behalf. You say you kind of have 2 camps of people who look at the art. So can you just really quickly just reiterate that?
Yeah, we so the 2 camps are the people who see like the front cover, the architect, the redheaded architect with like the tank top and everything like that, and it was like in the couple kind of staring at each other, and they're like, oh, this looks like very like macabre. Like I want to explore this this world, and oh god, that art looks so pretty. And then you see like the people who look at more so the original cover for the book, which is that construct being put together, the early day construct, the eyeball into the face, or the modern day in our setting, the construct sweeping the street, or the other individual, the dark shadows and such as he kind of stares off into the distance. Like they see that and they're like, oh god, the horror. Like there's so much creepiness there that I want to explore. Like, is that a dead body with a street lamp sticking out of its spinal column? Like, that's awesome. I want that. So it's been really interesting seeing like what people grab on as they look through the art and such. And even that's our main artist, but like if you check out the spot art too, which kind of showcases some of the more very nuanced aspects of the setting. One of which is like this black and white hand drawn, almost like weird. It looks like someone put two constructs on top of a horse and gave it a flail, as well as a
centaur or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Like you know, some architect had a lot of fun putting that together. And so it kind of gives you more of a example of the darker aspects.
I'm not gonna lie, in that folder, that doctor's one freaks me the fuck out. Like it's really like I've got it open now. I'm like, oh, I
think I'm gonna animate that and just have the eyeball figure out if just flick around and follow you. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, like they have I was talking about the one where it's like doctors, where it's like the fuzzy.
Oh yeah, the black and yeah, that was so very important because like for someone, either you're in the operating table or you're dead, and this is kind of the first thing you see is these architects cutting and splicing you open.
I appreciate how faceless they look as well. Like they're not wearing traditional surgical masks; they just kind of look like goggles in kind of blank space. This art is so cool.
Yeah, and the black and white is done by a artist named Nelly Sorensen over here in Baltimore. And I just had a meeting with her yesterday as she was kind of going through what to produce next. And I think that's kind of what I really wanted, was when someone's looking through the book to not get too comfortable with one sort of style, and then to just kind of be like, holy heck, why are these people staring at me? And I'm just like, I don't know. Fine.
No, it is good. Like I'm definitely the former, the person who's like, oh, this looks so pretty, I want to explore. And by the sounds of things, Ben's that guy like, give me all the creepy stuff, give it to me, get it directly into my veins. Like
I want it in my nightmares, or I don't want it anywhere.
Yeah, we had a one shot the other day where they were hunting down a nativity construct who had gone rogue, so we were starting to kill parents to take their babies to take care of them, and of course, like replacing its failing organs with other constructs, other nativity like caring bots or constructs, and so it was like this horrendous, like, oh man, I hate to use the word, but construct centipede at the end of it, like just holding all these little babies in its arms like lovingly, and they had to try to like take it out while like trying to get the babies safe and sound, because another important aspect of the setting is like life is so very important because there's not much of us left, and we don't know if in 100 years will there be people around to continue on things. So when a baby shows up, it's very important. Really, everyone is desperately like the hardcore murderers, the people who are just kind of prone to that sort of violence, even have a kind of hesitancy to taking life, just because it's every life taken is another notch in the death of humanity. It's just kind of this resounding feeling that everyone has. So part of the setting is like, don't kill anyone. It's a huge taboo. Yeah.
So if we look at that, then how you would go about killing someone, the mechanics of the game.
Mhm.
Now, one of the reasons why I got like this almost like space western, even though it's like very medieval setting, is the use of cards. And Ben's got some questions about this.
I got
So
Yeah.
questions.
Ben, because I'm just like, this is kind of cool. Like I like the idea of it. I couldn't explain it to anyone. If they asked me, I'd just go, each of the suits means something.
Yeah.
Like we'd have to play, and they're like, I'm not going to play a TTRPG that uses cards as a like, because obviously we're used to rolling dice and being
Yeah.
dodge goblins. So Ben, take it away. What help me
So
here.
it was very briefly touched on, but I do actually have some genuine questions. Do you want to give a quick rundown of the system, just so listeners aren't just out in the wind? Don't
Yeah, so it uses a standard deck, a poker deck, and every person needs their own deck of cards for this. What we discovered actually 2 weeks ago is that you can use a tarot deck, which totally like escaped my mind. But as a fan of tarot decks in general, I was really excited. Yeah, I was like, hell yes. And so now because of that, we'll definitely have a subsection to be like, well, you can use a standard deck, which is kind of the default and assumption. But if you want to use a tarot deck, that's totally cool. And here's how you kind of translate it, which is just going to be a little blurb. It's really easy.
Nice.
But yeah, a standard deck of cards. And when you're looking at your character sheet, your kind of features or kind of ability scores would be kind of the synonym there. You have flesh, which is kind of your charisma, how people view you, how you communicate with other people. You have steel, which is like your physical abilities. You have steam, which is kind of more of a mental thing. And then you have gear, which is the thing that makes you special, or like your character archetype, what you've been trained to do. And between those, each one represents a suit, flesh being hearts, steel being diamonds, steam being clubs, gear being spades. So when you're making a character, well, specifically the character deck, you're kind of putting those numbers together and making a very small deck of cards. So the other part of the deck you just kind of toss to the side. It's not being used for the game. You have that very small deck of cards, and at the beginning of the day, you draw up to 6, and that's kind of your breath, your morning breath. Whenever you want to take a short break, you kind of take another breather, and you kind of draw back up to 6. But throughout the day, you play these cards to gain successes. And there's 2 ways of gaining successes. One is playing a card that matches the action with the suit. So for steel, which is diamonds, the kind of physical athletics, if you're trying to jump over a roof and you play a diamonds, no matter what the numeric value is on that card, you automatically get 1 success. The other way is getting 8 or a 16. Really a multiple of 8, but past 16 it gets very, very difficult because you can only play 1 card unless you are trained in it. Then you can play 2 cards. So usually you kind of go between 1 or 2 successes. With, if you're trained at it, you can potentially get 3 successes. The reason kind of we did this and stuff was we wanted people to have the ability to, at the beginning of the day, almost like spoons, you kind of understand what you want to do that day and what you want to focus on. And then just kind of respond based on your priorities instead of a kind of a random chance. And there is some aspects of randomness. Whenever you run out of cards, you just blind draw from the top, or you could push the roll or push the draw, which is to blind pick the top again. But yeah, that's kind of the basis of the system.
So on the first read, I think this is kind of where some people get like the frontier idea from. Traditionally, in role-playing games, like if you're using a deck of cards, it's kind of because the cards have almost like a narrative purpose. Like I think Deadlands uses them because it's supposed to be like playing poker or whatever. So in sort of, in your eyes, are you using the deck of cards just to kind of facilitate the mechanic, or is there like a thematic reason behind it being a deck of cards?
Yeah, it's kind of in my viewpoint, and the other creators and stuff have kind of different viewpoints. But for me, it was just like in the setting where um, humanity is doing okay now, but it's just kind of like every little resource spent or every little human life lost is kind of like it's a gamble to figure out, is it worth it, and do we persist on? And so for the deck of cards, having it kind of drawn out, you can kind of see what your day is going to be like. So there's a little bit more known quantity in terms of what you're going to be able to achieve when you first draw those cards. And so I kind of like that. And then there's a lot of back and forth between the GM and the players as they deal out consequences. Like if you're jumping over the roof, you can deal out two consequences. One being like you take damage, the other being you are slowed down depending on who you could be pursuing over the rooftops. And so you have to look at your deck and be like, well, if I don't have enough to achieve both successes, or if I want to save some of my diamond cards for another time, what's more important to me? Is it catching this person, in which I would take some damage and sacrifice a little bit of myself to gain that? Or do I protect myself first and foremost and kind of let them take more of a lead and ignore the consequence of damage? So it's just kind of a compromising, like, yes and between the GM and the player via the use of these cards, which I really enjoy. It feels like more of a conversation for me.
Yeah, I really like that. I think one of the things I actually like, which you don't really get in a lot of RPGs, is when you play a card, like you can describe your action in a way because you already know,
Yeah,
kind of, if you've got a success. Whereas in like a lot of games, you're kind of like, I jump over the ravine, you roll the dice, and you're like, I guess I didn't do that at all. So I kind of yeah, I really like the idea that you've kind of got this known quantity of, I am going to succeed at this, at least partially.
yeah,
It's very cinematic, and I like.
yeah, and
I think
especially
your thing of spoons was a good one as well. Like,
Yeah.
the fact that you know that you're running out, like things are gonna. Yeah,
Yeah, and I especially like if you're not good at something, if you only have like 3 flesh or 3 heart cards in your entire deck, but you happen to be lucky enough to get 1 heart for your first breath or during a certain like scenario, you can be like, even if I'm not great at this, like I know at least sometime today I will be successful, at least eliminate 1 consequence in a social encounter. So even if you're just like a big buff type of person, you have that chance, or you have an opportunity there that you know you will have. It's just a matter of when and how you decide to pursue it. So I always enjoyed that because people are definitely multifaceted, and charisma especially has so much nuance about it that it's hard to capture in a TTRPG. So having the ability for someone who just kind of dumps charisma to be able to be like, yes, well, at least this scenario, I'm going to own it because I've kind of saved myself for this moment.
I don't think we've gone over the face cards yet. They're different in that they sort of, if I'm reading it right, almost trigger special, almost like abilities, right? So if you could just give us a quick rundown of kind of the face cards, I think that would be.
Yeah, definitely. So you have the Jack Queen and the King. And Jack, especially during character creation, which will kind of we'll be showing off some of that stuff during the Kickstarter. Jack represents like your knowledge and experience, and the Queen is more so like physical characteristics that you might have on hand that are kind of important to your character and help define it. So between those two, you usually choose one of those that you create and put in your deck. And this always represents another suit that you have in your deck. But what it does is, by having it in your deck, it gives you a special ability or something special that you can use throughout all of play. So it doesn't even have to come up in your hand. It could just not come up at all during gameplay. But because it's in your deck, it's just kind of a part of who you are. one of my looking at the character pre-gens and stuff, there's one that, because you're like had such a down and out life, that having this jack in your deck allows you to blind draw 2 and choose whichever you want instead of just blind drawing 1, which is one of my favorites. Or martial arts for the techno font, which gives them like an additional damage for all their attacks. And the king is a flaw, though. The king allows you to, because you can only put in 1 jack or 1 queen. Bringing in a flaw provides you the other type of card into your deck too. But that flaw will be around for you during all of play. And that flaw can still be used for successes. You just kind of, it's also a narrative note to be like, well, how does your flaw kind of get in the way despite you having a success here? So for the Technophon, it's these large scars and such that have kind of accrued over what could potentially be almost a century of battle.
Yeah, I really love this. It's almost like your character is the deck. Like I think that works super, super well. I don't know why the king is the worst thing you can have. That to me seems very weird. When I first read it, I was like, "What?" I wonder if sort of my first reading of it was maybe like, do you get to accrue more kings? Like if you take like maybe critical injuries or something? Like why have you chosen king to be the worst thing over like the Joker is like a special ability kind of thing?
Yeah, like the Joker is like the critical card that's in every deck that is just like your moment to shine. The Jack and the Queen are kind of aspects of your character, and the King, is that flaw. And so for us, it just kind of was the what do people recognize first and foremost in a person? And I think especially in this almost melancholy-esque setting, flaws are more apparent than kind of the goodness of a person. So in terms of the Technophont, you're more likely to recognize and nod to the scars on this person's face than their ability to do martial arts. And so I think that's kind of a reflection of the setting.
I do like that thematic choice because like one of the things I was struggling with when I first read it, and I've read it a couple of times now, was like, how do you build a deck then? Because like I was like, do I need all 52 cards? Is there only a certain amount? Like, is there because you have to win in multiples of 8? So I played the 8 of hearts as my flesh roll. Do I get both successes? Because technically I've done both. What's to stop me from just loading my deck with all the 8s and the 4s? Like it was that's my question. How does one build a deck like properly?
So looking at the pre-gens and such, the features or kind of ability scores, you're going up from the lowest, which is an ace, all the way up to that number within that suit. So flesh 6 would be you add hearts 1 or hearts 8 of hearts, a 2 of hearts, a 3 of hearts, all the way up till you get to 6 of hearts. And you set that aside, and then you go on to the next feature, which is steel. So you go ace of steel, 2 of steel, 3 of steel. You pop that on, and that's kind of you start to build your deck from those features, and then you with the pre-gens at least make the choice of like, do I want the king in my hand, or do I just want 1 jack or 1 queen in my hand, or in my deck? And so the deck becomes a reflection of who you are, and just like the coolness I felt whenever I would go to a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, which would inevitably end with me losing at all the Toys R Us tournaments I went to. I like the feeling of like your deck being yours and special to you. So, yeah.
Addison, I'm going to try and get you a scoop here. You don't have to answer this. On the Kickstarter as a stretch goal, is there a pack of playing cards?
Yes.
There's your scoop, Addison. There you go.
Hey, there we go. No, that is sick though. Like, because I was just like, I'm looking at the creating the character deck part like right now. Like I'm looking at it. And I was like, to create a deck, each player must contain each suit ranging from ace to the value match to the suit's corresponding ability. So I was like, so is it just their stat, or have I missed something? Like,
we should probably change that to.
I was like reading it and just like, what, or just give an example. Like the example you just gave made it so much clearer. Like if you're stealer 6, put cards ace through to 6.
Yeah, and that's kind of when the quick start rolls out in the core rule book. We fully intend to kind of use the deck of cards that we're creating as kind of an example right below, so that you can be like, okay, even like for especially me, who's a very visual person, when I read something, I'll just be like,
that's gonna look fucking beautiful in that book as well. It's gonna look
like
so
I don't
good.
understand this. What the hell is this picture? And then I see the pictures. I was like, okay, I get it now. Picture book.
Yeah.
I got this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is sick. But no, I'm like, you know, when you have that light bulb moment, like, is it the Minions movie or Despicable Me where he goes light bulb? Like that's me right now.
That is,
I'm like, it finally makes sense to me.
Uses rule books to come with an IKEA picture book of how to play it.
Yeah, this is true. I do misread rules all the time. I'm not gonna lie. Even in games that I've like read cover to cover multiple times. Like
every time I read Shadowrun, I'm like,
Ben's most successful video is explaining Shadowrun, isn't it, Ben?
That's a rough one, isn't it? Shadowrun, I think the rule is just as many D6s as you can fit in a 4-plate.
Like if your GM's drowning in D6s, I think you're doing it right. So just keep throwing D6s at him.
I would never get a single rule wrong ever. Especially, I wouldn't get a rule wrong and then release a whole video with the rules that are wrong. That would be ridiculous.
Oh,
you didn't do that for Hieronymus, did you?
Yeah, I didn't do that. Sorry, Laurie.
Sorry, Laurie. Yeah. But yeah,
I did that for Cult Divinity Lost when I was first playing it. The Powered by the Apocalypse TTRPG. It uses D10s for like 2D10s for all of its actions. And I was thinking like other Powered by the Apocalypse games, so I made everyone do 2D6. And they were wondering why like horrific things were happening to them like all the time. And I was just like, no, that's part of the setting. And then afterwards, someone put on the comments, they're like, isn't it 2D10? And I'm like, yeah, you right. Right.
The Peter Griffin thing when he bangs it like.
But then it came out to be really cool because when I play it now, I'm like, all right, there's Nightmare mode, which is dropping your 2D10s to 2D6. And then there's 2020 mode, which is just dropping it down to 2D4 and watching you cry. So
I thought 2020 mode was going to be you roll 2D20s.
No, 2D4s because you will always fail most of the time.
I love the fact that you've gone from like, it's like have you ever played Devil May Cry? There's the Devil May Cry difficulty that is literally Dante must die. Like you're like, yep, there we go. Like there we
Yeah. It's like, oh man, you're just gonna fail this combat roll. You're gonna fail that look. That monster is definitely gonna bite your arm off. Like just,
it's not a bug, it's a feature.
Exactly. Like welcome to 2020. It's weird.
But yeah, have you got any more system questions, Ben, about?
All of my system questions were almost answered in the first rules intro. I'm going to be honest. So all of my system questions are over.
Yeah, but yeah, no.
Yeah.
You may rest easy now.
Yeah, with Ben's had the spotlight on. You haven't seen it, but he's like almost like. Tell me, trying to light it aside everything.
Yeah. You were wondering how people like take damage and stuff. Which I think is a very good reflection on how like dirty and dark the setting can be. And that's every time you are dealt a damaging consequence, you pretty much have a track from 0 to 4. 0 is the narrative note that things aren't going well. So you get that scratch on your eye as blood starts kind of pooling around your eyeball and under your cheek and stuff. And it's getting hard to see. Or maybe they kind of rip off a finger. And then every damage up till 4 after that is a cumulative -1 success to all your actions within that suit. So if it's like physical damage, it's steel. But you also have like social consequences. Mental consequences that will affect your ability to kind of gain successes within those suits. And then once you hit 4, no matter which ability track you're kind of notching these trauma in, you're just dead.
I was going to say one of the things that I really like about, and you kind of referenced it when we were talking about the card system, was this like 2 consequence system where like it's always a conversation like you will suffer either 1 consequence, 2 consequences, or in some you can like by the sounds of things like, the machinist can like go. I think the most you say is maybe 3. You say like there might be 3 consequences. Yeah, like and like. I like that because it's almost like the Blades in the Dark system. Like you succeed, but like it was what was the thinking behind that in terms of like so D&D the dragon game like when you succeed and you do cool shit and rah. Kind of the same in Mecha Hack that we play at the minute. Like you do cool shit when you succeed. Like that's just how it is. What made you decide to go more that like Blades in the Dark, that more almost degrees of success that we see in a lot of D20 systems? Why did you go for that rather than just like straight up power fantasy or straight up like you just win?
Yeah, for us, I think the setting is always like progress, but like at what cost? And so in combat, everything is like, well, I could go all out on attack and hope that I can just obliterate this thing in 1 turn, or I could take a more defensive role and just use my successes to try to find a solution that could save me from this predicament, or you could just go with a balanced thing. But either one has a flaw and a consequence in pursuing it. So every especially in combat, every step forward has the potential to bring you a step back, depending on kind of how severe the consequences are. One of my favorite things is, and especially, which I haven't really got to do in a one-shot yet, but is have like these epic fights where there's multiple people and consequences being thrown out all over the place. Because one of my favorite aspects is the ability to kind of negate consequences for someone else. So you can just kind of take the brunt of the damage yourself in order to kind of use your huge techno-powered sword to block a construct from ripping asunder your architect friend. And so they don't have to deal with the consequences going towards them, but you take all the consequence. And it's just kind of that collaborative, like yes, but yes, and that's just kind of the combat system, as well as the system in general, kind of emphasizes.
I do like that. I think it's very narratively fitting, and like I like the like I always like things that go at what cost. Like when I write stories or I write campaigns, even when my players succeed, there's usually something that they forgot or something that's like underneath. And Ben knows this quite well. Like in Mecha Hack at the minute, I've been pretty mean at times. But
at times.
all the time.
But yeah, so I really like that idea of almost, you can block this. That's fine. You can take this bullet for your friend. However, like you're not going to walk this off like the John Wick-esque, like superhuman. You are going to probably need to do something about this in the future. Otherwise, your arm is fucked, and like you now can't wield your sword properly, which is then going to have more consequences because you're not going to be able to block as much damage. Like it's almost like dominoes.
Yeah, it is. Like once you get that the second trauma and you have a -1 to all your successes, like you're just dealing out a success every turn just to nullify that consequence on you. And so everything after that is just is bread pudding, but it's tough to get there.
So when do you think this is gonna happen? When are we gonna see Necrobite up and about? Where are people gonna be able to find it? What's like the goal with it? Like your long-term goal? Because this isn't out yet. Like we've been given a very
very early days
drafts. Yeah, but like when are we gonna see this? And what's like your roadmap, if you will?
Yeah, so May 12th is the launch of the Kickstarter, and that will kind of be the best indication on the success of it. Will be the best indication on kind of what our roadmap will be. we're looking at a turnaround of about February 2022, right? That's next year. To have it in people's hands before Gen Con here in the US. There's even a potential, because most of the stuff is written and done. There's even a potential to have it sent off right before Christmas. But of course, Kickstarter, like, there's always something going on that postpones it. But our roadmap is next year. We would love to start releasing supplements that kind of explain like the other cities that are out there that are doing well in the kind of the society that they've built. We have a new faction called the Children of the River, which kind of a little teaser. One of them went into the wilderness and found a construct who could speak and philosophize and stuff. And so he comes back to Florence and says that constructs are bad and evil. They're actually like people. And so there's this kind of a faction growing within Florence that starts to turn things over on its head. The ability to play a construct like a template, if your character dies, is something that we're exploring and want to facilitate. There's a lot of secrets and stuff that we want to explore and to have people try out and play. So that's kind of our next supplement roadmap there is having this happen and continuing to develop the world, because the world, since it's based on the books, like it has, the arc is done and over with. The books are done. So we have, and what I want is for like the story to continue on as the years go on. And for like the next time you play with the next supplement, you're like, these things have changed in the world. This is how I impacted them. And then what's the next step as humanity starts to recover from this horrendous event?
I'm going to ask Ben a question. I'm going to turn things on their head. Ben.
Oh, God.
One of these supplements comes out. It's a city you want. What city is it?
Oh. York. Leeds. Leeds is the one. Leeds has got to be the one.
I tell you which one I would want if it was available. Kyoto in Japan.
Yeah, like that would be
like the really ancient buildings around, like, and then just like these massive like technological like monoliths. You're like what? Like
that would be. Oh, I would love that. Love for that to happen, especially since the towns are so isolated. This kind of introduction of different ways that they have coped. Like, did they go with the construct route, or did they try something else entirely? So it really kind of releases more of a weird world that you can explore. That I'm really happy to kind of see people and all like. I love watching other people play it because they always bring to mind things that I'm like, oh man, I did not think of that. That should be in the book, which is my favorite part.
I think one of the coolest things, because Ben, you're currently doing something on your channel where you're trying to create your own TPRPG at the moment, and
yes.
So you've got Mitchell here who's doing it, who's living that dream. Like, one of the things that I can imagine for both of you is wanting to watch people like play and enjoy that. Is that the truth? Like, that the thing you want to do is like have this thing in people's hands or on people's computers, and they're running it with their friends and like seeing them use it is the best thing.
I mean, I'm more excited to play it myself because I'm selfish. But now I'm also more excited to play Necrobiotic, because that,
I mean, for me, I've only played Necrobiotic one time, and I've just been running it all the other times, and it was really fun to play. But Friends Who Roll Dice did a stream of it the other day, and it was the thirstiest one shot I've ever seen of Necrobiotic, and I was like, this is so amazing. I love it, and to see kind of how romance blossoms even in like a post-apocalyptic dystopian setting was really cool to see. And now I'm like, well, I want to explore, like, what does what does like the joining of people look like in the setting, and like how can we, because relationships are so important, and it's definitely something I want to emphasize in the game. And so seeing that was really cool.
You have a cool opportunity there to go like proper like new Brave New World / Handmaid's Tale there, because obviously life being so precious, like we're only breeding the right people. Like
it's like oh god,
like breaking away from that, and like because I find that terrifying as well. Like me and my wife have always talked about the fact that like people telling you what you can do with your body, or like it just gives me the heebie-jeebies.
God, and that's like horrific to explore. Like in the Citadel law, your body is not your body once it's dead. Like it's illegal for someone else to try to bury you or cremate you or kind of mess with you in any way. So the fact that people aren't allowed to kind of have this ceremony, which humanity has been wrapped up in ceremonies surrounding the dead since the beginning, and kind of what does that do to a person, and then kind of the fact that I talked to you earlier about this construct that talk to people, like what does that mean, and the fact that we have these construct workforce, is it slavery? Is the things that humanity is doing, is this like super wrong and they just don't know they're doing it, or maybe someone knows out there that they're doing it? Like it's just so many like questions about morality and what does it take to survive, and is it worth it and stuff, that I'm really interested in seeing people kind of explore the different theories that they might have concerning the setting, and finding out how deep that rabbit hole goes.
I could see like a really interesting campaign could be like you keep getting sent to people, or like to constructs that are talking, and it just like you keep having to figure out, like almost like having to Turing test, or like Blade Runner-esque, like figure out which ones of them are actually just programmed to say things very intelligently or not. Like a bunch of things come to mind for like running. Like you could do so many different campaigns that focus on so many different aspects. Like this seems like very deep as a setting, with full of hooks for adventures.
Oh yeah. Those are always our hope, to just be like, and I think that's why in the core rulebook we don't explain everything, and that's kind of an intention to be like, if you have a question, you as a GM or you as a player, go explore it and find out the answer to that question, because we're not going to tell you. We're not going to tell you if the constructs are sentient and have a soul. We're just going to let you figure it out yourself. There's one thing known in the setting that we definitely tell people, and that's the architects don't even understand the science behind reanimating a corpse. Like they do it and they understand the processes that gets them there, but the final spark of life that occurs, like that part of the science hasn't been figured out exactly. But they do it anyway because it saves humanity. But it's just kind of like this unknown little thing, this X upon the equation that is still unknown. So it's really interesting.
I agree with you there, Ben, as well, about that fact that it's so deep. Like even you've only just told us that thing about like Citadel law, say it states that like your body is not your own. You now have a campaign about people who have to go and retrieve bodies that people are trying to bury. That can be one, like your party's job is like, oh yeah, we've heard that there's going to be a funeral here, like a cremation here. You need to go collect that before.
Yeah, and there's a picture that our spot artist is doing, that is this woman crying as a bunch of militia are carting her husband's dead body away. You know, her not having the ability to kind of grieve or perform any sort of post-mortem ceremony. It's tough.
Yeah, that's so good. It's just so good. Like the art for it's good. The mechanics are cool. The setting's cool. I'm genuinely excited. If it comes out, maybe a bit after. So I was going to say before my son is born, because my wife is pregnant. But maybe a bit after. Like
how many months?
Like yeah, like so.
How many months? If you don't mind me asking. When is it
Maybe it's due in
expected?
July.
Oh man.
So that's when it goes on. So give it a few months, and maybe me and Ben can stream it on the Flickering Torch Twitch channel, twitch.tv/The Flickering Torch.
Thank you. 7:30 GMT or BST, depending on what England's on at that point. I'm sold. The game sounds awesome.
Yes.
I can't wait for this May Kickstarter. I want my special, Pod Many Things exclusive card deck.
Oh yeah, it's gonna. Oh man, we're working on a slipcase for like the 2 books too, and like just keep upping the value and the quality of the book.
That is one of the good things about tabletop RPGs, though, especially the indie variety, because like your Dungeons and Dragons books look nice on your shelf, they do, but then you see things like the Forbidden Lands book, like the like rubberized texture of the Blades in the Dark book. Like I've recently kickstarted the Good Society.
Yeah, I love the Good Society. Oh yeah. Man,
like those books are fucking beautiful.
Yeah,
like they're actually like novel folios. Like they look so good, and I've got my physical copy coming thanks to the reprint. But like one of the cool things about indie RPGs is that you can see the love and care that people put into them. So hearing you saying like we're gonna have this card deck, we're gonna have this slipcase for the books and all this cool shit, like it's obvious that you not only believe in this project, but you want your customers and the people who buy it to get the most out of it.
Yeah, I mean, my hope is to have all the books spread out on my bed, and I just like sleep in it for a couple of days, and then those are the copies I'll send over to you guys. So, like, have at it.
We have your energy.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like
a swimming
on
pool
half
full
of
necrobiotic
playing
cards like Scrooge McDuck.
So one thing I did promise is for you and Ben to have a bit of a moment to discuss indie RPGs, like maybe give some recommendations for people to look at. And then we will do our final segment and goodbyes. And our final segment is the deck of many questions, where you get to pick a number and we ask you a question. That could be spicy or not. Ben was asked which monster from the Monster Manual in D&D he would have sexual intercourse with.
I just want to point out that I have listened to almost every episode of the Pod of Many Things, and no one else had a question that was so demeaning.
That's just you. Yeah. I think the question should be: which book should you have? Do you prefer to have sexual intercourse with of the D&D lineup?
So let's talk in tabletop indie RPGs, because I do think that they deserve a bit more of a shout out now that Ben has finally converted me, because I was that guy.
Yeah.
I was that guy. Like, Dungeons and Dragons is it, man. I just want to play Dungeons and Dragons. Leave me alone. Get that shit out my face. And then, like, I met like Ben, and he played Knights Black Agents, and then that opened my eyes to like Blades in the Dark.
Such good stuff. And yeah, in my very humble opinion, I definitely believe the best games are coming out of the indie market right now. And I do love me some D&D, and I do love me some Pathfinder. And much love to those companies. But like the amount of creativity and love for every book that's coming out of the indie community is just like, oh, you could feel it. But my first recommendation is the Genesis Rebirth, the post-apocalyptic TTRPG done by Six More Vodka, which is actually, I think, the first TTRPG game company that produced a alcohol specific for the game, which was just Six More Vodka, which was 6% more proof than like the average vodka. Yeah, I know, right? I think you can power your car with it or something like that. So, but yeah, like it is. I think it is the best produced TTRPG on the market. Six More Vodka also does art for like Marvel, for Riot Games, so League of Legends. So they have a plethora of, and they're an art studio for the most part. And their TTRPG project, the Genesis Rebirth, was like their side project. Yeah, looking through the book, check out the trailer. It looks like a movie. It is gorgeous live action trailer. They have 2 of them. And so check it out. That is Genesis Rebirth.
Mine is my one is Good Society by Story Brewers. I think that I'm an English teacher. Like, I love Jane Austen. I think it's the funniest thing ever.
It is truly the best. I've had
Yeah.
so much fun times in that setting.
I need to convince the boys to play it on the stream, and then we'll play
Oh
it on
no,
the
we're
stream.
all in. You already know we're all in.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are you thinking, Ben? Tell us what you're.
My favorite RPG is usually the one that I read last. So I finished Agon very recently, John Harper, and I think the second edition's got a different writer who is Nittner? Something. But I've now just finally got the PDF copy of Shiver, which I was so excited about when it launched on Kickstarter because it's got that awesome. I think Ben Milligan does the art, but it's very Mike Mignola-esque, and it's kind of like a weird horror game. It's almost. I don't want to call it like a setting agnostic book because it's not. Like, you very obviously have to play a certain kind of story with it. But you kind of within those confines can create your own thing. I want to run the most fucked up version of Scooby-Doo humanly possible, where Scooby gets like skinned by Jason Voorhees and the gang are running away, and you
let's do it.
That might be my next thing after the one that I always recommend on stream, Forbidden Lands. Still great. If you want a fantasy RPG, check that out. And then I can't disparage my good boy Hanker and Fernale. So ICRPG, you need to check that out. It's like the best one-shot game that you can possibly run. You can get that to the table in like 2.5 seconds flat.
Ooh.
I will say as well, like Mecha Hack's a bit like that. I did. Sorry, Matt. I love you. Like, Matt, I fucking love you. You gave me something I didn't even know I needed in the Mecha Hack and the mission manual and everything. So, like, Mecha Hack is just this simple mecha RPG using the Black Hack system, where you just get to punch things in giant robots, and it's like the most satisfying thing in the world. Like,
and then one last massive thing that you should back on Kickstarter when it finally makes it is Necrobiotic. You should definitely pick that up.
Necrobiotic.
There's your plug. You get that.
You go plug it. Do that pre-launch email thing. I will say we are we're thinking about early backers giving away the Italian PDF of the books just for people to look at, even if you don't read Italian. So yeah, that will be really interesting and cool to see. But
yeah, no, thank you so much, Mitchell, for being on and talking to both me and Ben. I know it's a bit weird for some people who are listening. Like, Ben's here. Like, Ben's not here till Tuesdays normally. Why is he on the pod of many things? Yeah, it's been great talking to you about this project. Like, I'm really excited. I can't wait to back it and to see you and your friends who put so much love into this product get the recognition you deserve, because I think a lot of people are going to come out and see that you guys are actually like fucking serious. Like, it's such a good product. Like that you've come out swinging, like a bit like our friend Laurie, who's made some great games. I think that's one thing that the indie scene needs at the minute, is people to come out swinging with great products to show that people don't have to work at Wizards of the Coast or Paizo to do something meaningful in space. They can get together with their mates and have a pop, and it can be really successful. So thank you.
No problem. And we do have constructs, so we'll always send those out if needed.
You'll finish the people off who decide.
Yeah, we know how to reanimate people. It's in the book.
Yeah.
Is that your tier 1 Kickstarter goal? Get to become a construct when you die.
Who wants it?
Surely that's a stretcher. That's a stretch goal. You have to be a certain like.
Yeah. The highest pledge is you donate your body to the.
Thank you for science. Yeah, we really appreciate it.
So it is time. Mitchell, are you ready to face the deck of many questions here on?
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm ready.
So, for those of you who know and those of you who don't, you know the deck of many questions. It is our community-suggested question list pulled from the hat randomly. In this case, Mitchell is going to select a number between 1 and 75. And if you would like to stack the deck in or out of our favour, You can add questions by commenting on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Probably not Facebook, actually, because I'm suck at checking that one.
Yeah,
But
I know that.
basically anywhere where you can leave a comment, DM or whatever, I'll put your question in the deck, and then I will shout you out when I ask that questions. When I ask you that question, I will learn to talk eventually. So.
Kind of a
Between 1 and
prerequisite
70
to having a podcast, being able to talk.
Yeah, I know. It's like we'll get Ben on this one as well. So we'll do the guest first, and then I'll do my co-host and get him.
That's the horrific one. He's got that one saved.
Yeah. So Mitchell, between 1 and 75?
69.
69.
Nice.
He's doing it. So controversial question, a question I hate, and was put in here by my old co-host Leon.
Ooh.
I know you're listening, and I still hate this question, like I did when you put it in. Why do you think bards are the best class, or any bard like adjacent in indie RPGs?
Why are they the best class? This is tough. I feel like they're normally looked at as the worst class, or at least the class that is made fun of the most.
I hate them personally. Just making you aware. This is why my wife plays one in our current campaign, just to see me upset.
Stretch goal. We're just gonna add a bard to Necrobiotic. Just a random bard.
And the picture is Addison's old MySpace picture.
Get to play this. Yeah.
The stretch goal is just called "Fuck You, Addison."
Oh man, I think bards, they're playing a different game entirely than everyone else, and especially people who come to play them. You're like, all right, I'm really good at charisma, and I will always be really good at charisma. My whole thing during a fight will be to charisma at people, and I will charisma at people out of combat, in combat. There are no other stats on my sheet. It's just charisma. And so if I can't charisma my way out of this scenario, I will charisma during it and let my fellow friends deal with the consequences of my charisma. And so for that is why it is the best class, because it is a class on its own tier that does what it wants, with the ability to move nations or to lead directly to a TPK with just one sentence. The bard, the bard in its glory. That's it. That's why it's the best.
Now I really want to see someone Photoshop a D&D character sheet where it's just charisma, like massive in the middle, and then all the other stats in like full-size font, just like cluttered around it.
Ben, you also get to choose a.
Well, 69 is gone, so we'll go for 42.0.
Oh, hell
42.0. Yeah. What class have you never played that you want to play via our friend Dave Paul on YouTube?
These are all very D&D.
Addison, remember to smash cut this and like apologize for technical difficulties or something.
Hi, Addison.
Hi, future Addison. We love you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So, sorry about that. We've had a bit of a technical issue, but we're back. Ben was just about to answer question 42 of the deck of many questions that says what class have you never played that you want to play, from Dave Paul via YouTube. I will, because you said that it's very D&D centric, I will allow you to say things like playbooks or things from other games. You'll just have to specify what game you're mentioning.
I just want to play some Vampire the Goddamn Masquerade. I've never got to fucking play it properly. I just want to play it properly.
My gosh. We should play it sometime.
Yes, we should!
Oh my
Thank
god!
You
might have just made Ben come in his pants. I don't know. You can demonetize this on YouTube for that.
Look, find a time. I will run the game. Get a group together. Let's do it, because I love me some Vampire the Masquerade.
My hipster Ventrue is going to be with washing machine based nightclub. Right? Yeah, that's it. I want to play a Ventrue and Vampire the Masquerade in like a proper modern campaign. None of this medieval nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
I want to explore my own personal horror. That's what I want to do. But if we're talking D&D classes, I've never played a Warlock. Warlocks seem cool. You know what class I don't want to play because it's dumb and stupid? A Monk. That's right, Addison. I said it again. I fucking said it again.
monks annoy me because they're halfway to what I want. Like, I want to play a brawler, but I don't want this wisdom shit. That's why I'm punching people in the face, because I'm not wise enough to pick up a goddamn sword.
You've just made an enemy out of Addison, or an
adversary.
An adversary.
Adversary of Addison. I'm just like, I don't want to be wise and shit. Just let me punch something in the face. I do think
they did miss a trick with making a fighter subclass, which is literally just brawler. Like, they've literally galvanized every other player class but monk. Like, they're like, no other class can have like a monk like thing of punching people in the face.
What I really want them to do is a subclass. This is like, fuck it, dump wisdom now. You're not using it anymore. You're barely a monk. You're just gonna punch things in the face and in like in their little bits. Welcome to the fucking subclass. Like, we're just going for it.
The little flavor text at the start, though, it's put is man too angry to die.
what's the state where weird things just happen? Is it California man or Floridian man? Is it, yeah,
Florida
man. Yeah, Florida
that's
man.
Literally the subclass. Fighter Floridian man.
Yeah. I would love that. Like, roll. It's almost like the wild magic roll where you just, every time you punch someone, you randomly roll and like an alligator shows up and you have to also beat the crap out of it.
Just half of the table is just expletives. You just, I rolled a 13. What does that say? Fuck you, apparently. That's what it says.
What do I do with that? How do I role play that? I don't. It's not my. You rolled it. You take it from there.
You chose the subclass, bro.
All the other like weird crimes that you are also somehow committing at the same time. Like, you've decided to steal a duck from the local fountain or something like that, or the local park. You've decided to steal a duck.
Yeah, it just gets announced during combat. Like, you punch, you surge, you stole a duck. You have a duck in your hand now, and someone's like, "Hey, that guy just stole a duck," and you're like, "What the just happened? I thought we were fighting." Also, can we please make this subclass? Like, we need to get down on the nitty gritty on making this subclass.
Floridian man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. But yeah.
Yeah, I really just excited about the wild, the Floridian Surge table.
It's hurricane season. Better start looting. Like, it's just like,
you have a TV somehow. Just like, what the hell?
Level 20, you get to just summon Joe Exotic.
Oh man.
You get to you're beating Spurs to death while binge watching Drivers, or what's it? Drive-ins, dives, and whatever it's called. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Guy Fieri.
Yeah. We'll cook for your dinner. Your bar turns into Guy Fieri for an hour. And that's the wild surge.
It's just Hero's face reskinned, but Guy Fieri comes and cooks it.
Oh, right. Well,
you summon like 1d4 Jersey Shore people to fight. And they're not going to fight or do anything. They're just going to like do vicious mockery. Yeah,
or they're gonna
like just slap.
Or they're gonna pretend that they're gonna be fighting. They're gonna go, "What you gonna do about it, bro? What you gonna do about it?
Yeah. What?
Oh my god. So
they roll intimidate checks with like a -5.
So before we dive into the deep recesses of our imaginations and psyches and decide that Guy Fieri is our new god and our new warlock patron, we're gonna sign out. We're gonna sign out and say goodbye to you all. Thank you very much for listening. Mitchell, would you actually we'll do Ben first. Plug yourself again, Ben, for those people who made it this far. Then we'll sign out with Mitchell, and then boom.
Hi everyone, I've been Ben from the Flickering Torch, your temporary co-host for today. You can find me at twitch.tv/the Flickering Torch every Tuesday night. That's 7:30 British Standard Time, or if you're watching this way later when it's winter again, Greenwich Mean Time. You can also catch the VODs over on youtube.com/the Flickering Torch, as well as some opinion pieces, reviews, that kind of malark. You can follow me at Twitch at Flickering Torch. Just follow me. Like, in general, around a supermarket, that works too.
Okay, following that.
Find you in a supermarket.
Mitchell, tell us about, sign off, tell us about yourself. When are we going to see Necrobiac on Kickstarter?
Yeah. So yeah, you can find Necrobiotic May 12th on Kickstarter. It will be early in the morning, right before my vaccination. And I will just be watching during the whole process. Really excited for it. You can find updates on my Twitter, which is Penny for a Tale. And you can probably pretty much find me anywhere on that moniker. You can also check out our website, pennyforatale.com, as well as our 2 streams, Weave the Tale and Penny for a Tale. Yeah, I'm super excited. There's a lot of stretch goals, a lot of cool things we want to add to the book, but we can always only do it with the support and love from the community. So send thy love, and I promise we will turn it into a well-constructed construct.
You've got mine and Ben's support, and as usual, I'm Addison. I'm your favourite friendly furbog who hangs around the internet, and I hope whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are, you're safe, you're well, and you're making some awesome memories around a table. See you in a bit.
Subscribe to the Flickering Torch on
Boop,
YouTube.
boop-a-doo. Like that is my hang on, that's the timetable. No, go to the green room. Fuck. Craig, leave. You left earlier, but
You need to leave all of this in, bro.